60% of all the people are Asian American, and the third largest group in general, not just Asian group, third largest ethnic group is Filipino American too, inside this district.
There's a lot of history of the Filipinos that nobody knows.
How do you get to be yourself within these systems? Some of you might know Filipino cultural value of Kapwa, seeing oneself in the other, having a shared sense of belonging and togetherness. The first thought that comes to mind when I think about building up Filipino community is my children. It was very intentional that when they grew up that they knew not just about their identity, but the whys. There are pieces of you, fragments of you that you're trying to suture together, but you can't because you don't have a language, you don't have the tools, you don't have ways of speaking about it. I think when people are like, why do I want to? Why do I have to? What does it matter? I think there is maybe an immediate rejection there because underneath that, they don't know the value of it yet. And maybe what they mean to say is, I don't understand.
I was born and raised here in what is now Japantown, just about a block and a half away from here.
They grew up in this house in the 1930s, and it is 2024.
My entire life was spent growing up along with my peers of the Filipino kids. You're not interested in taking pictures of the places where you're walking around, where you grew up, where you played. We never paid attention to all of the scenery here, and that one year we would be interested in history. But now, here we are.
It's one of the few surviving Pinoytown landmarks on 6th Street. This was Pinoytown. This is where it was poppin'.
We called it Chinatown at the time. And it was before we named this Filipino enclave as Pinoytown. We had our first tour in 2019, and that was a turning point for me. Maybe through these tours, we could keep the history and memory of the first wave Filipinos.
This was one of 6. There were many Chinatowns in San Jose, one on Vine Street, one on Market Street, but they were mysteriously getting burnt down until around the late 1800s. A gentleman, businessman named John Heinlein, who was a German immigrant, said, you know what, I got money, I got privilege, I have power, I'm going to open this space here, I'm going to build a fence around it, I'm going to invite Chinese immigrants to come here, live here, find a way of living and sustaining, following the Chinese, the Japanese, the Filipino Americans, other Asian Americans, immigrants, farm workers, laborers that needed a place to go, that wanted to make sure that they bought their bok choy or their rice, had good food, met each other.
Even though you live in this area, unless you make a deliberate effort or you happen to attend a presentation, you don't know really going on around you, especially for the deeply understanding the ethnic minorities. I myself did not know too much about Heinlein of Chinatown, but once I heard about it and how it affected the Filipinos, I dove into it. Most of those first-wave Filipinos were Ilocano. They came from the Ilocos region in northern Luzon.
Growing up Filipino, I grew up in a Ilocano household. I was always hearing the language, the way they would do things, their mannerisms, traditions of food and music.
People will find their way, even if it's like, not today with me in this class.
I was part of a Philippine Youth Coalition in high school, and that was like a way for me to connect with other Filipino Americans and hear their story. You know, made me proud for where I come from, who I am. There's a time where I was like 18 years old, and I really wanted to dig into Philippine culture in tattoos.
When we are searching for Filipino American identity, or we're learning about Filipino American anything, these are not phases. When we struggle together, how do we find joy together? When we are falling apart together, how do we build it back up?
I love connecting through tattoo because the different walks of life, where they come from, who they are, what they do. Through tattooing, I'm healing this person at the same time, giving him some sort of connection. It becomes sometimes very personal, and I sometimes make a long-time friend.
How other people can connect with the Filipino community is maybe by first identifying what it is that makes them come alive, connect with the ways in which the Filipino American community might be participating in those kinds of things. But if they're also just kind of like genuinely just like, I want to go check this out.
FACTA is the organization that puts this whole thing together. And we are actually a coalition of a bunch of organizations.
Allowing people to be drawn by or to follow things that make them feel good. It doesn't feel like it's a box they need to check out of knowledge, or a box they need to check out of something that they've done to be productive in life, right? But just that, like, oh, where are the connections?
If your parents or any one of your parents came from the Philippines, interview them, get their story, make a family tree, bring that closeness and connectivity to the Philippines and other people.
Isang bagsak!
Isang bagsak!
Yay! Thank you!